Thank you very much, Melanie. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute honour and privilege to be here today moderating the opening plenary. Although I'm quite aware that being both a Brit and a recruiter is something of an unholy alliance, so I feel like a very small Daniel putting his head into a very large lion's den. So, just a few words about the format this afternoon. We want to make this very interactive. So each of us on the panel are going to say really just a few words of introduction about ourselves and aspects of mentoring and early careers that we've been involved in. I'm specifically going to just talk a little bit about the STM and SSP mentoring programs that they've trialled and launched. And then each of the panelists in turn will introduce themselves. So other than giving you their names, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail myself about the individual panelists, and I'll let them do that themselves. As I said, it's going to be very interactive, so the idea is for it to be really very much an interactive discussion. We will have roaming microphones around the room. The session is being recorded, so can I ask, if you do ask a question, please speak clearly into the microphone, and please could you state your name and the organisation that you represent. That would be a real help. Thank you very much. So, without further ado, who am I? I'm the managing director of my own company. I am an executive search and recruitment consultant. I've been in publishing and digital content recruitment, as Melanie said, for about 20 years, across all disciplines and geographies, and for about 30 years or so in online content. I'm a member of these various bodies, and experience in recruiting at all levels and in hiring and managing interns in my own company. So I was a founding director of a recruitment company called Intelligent Resources, which some of you may have had some experience of in the past. And one of the things that we did there was to strike up a relationship with Brunel University in the UK, where their undergraduate program in business studies, everybody had to do a one-year internship. And we took on interns, and they worked within our company for a year and did pretty much everything. So we were mentoring them, we were training them, we were looking after them, but we were also throwing them firmly in the deep end. And it was a great experience both for us and for them, because the vast majority of them actually, when they completed their degrees, came back and worked with us afterwards for at least a couple of years. So we like to think that was a very beneficial relationship on both sides. I wanted to make this point. I'm a linguist by background, I'm not a publisher. I fell into publishing. I trained as a translator, and the first job that I happened to get was actually working as an abstractor for a company which is long gone, unfortunately, called Predicast, which some of you may know. I was an abstractor for this online business information company. They were a competitor of Reuters Textline back in the day, and that was my introduction to online publishing. And I suspect that that's the case for many of us, and we can explore that maybe a little later on. Our panel today, we have Anne Michael, who is the president of SSP and the president and founder of Delta Think. Meredith Adonolfi, who is the director of production at Cell Press, which is a division of Elsevier. We have Jean Shipman, who is the director of the Spencer Eccles Health Science Library at the University of Utah. And we have Nick Dormer, who has been a member of the SSP Early Career Task Force, and who also, in his spare time, is project coordinator of Society Strategy and Marketing at Wiley. So as I said, I will let each of them introduce themselves in a little more detail. Just to talk a little bit about the STM Early Careers Publishers Committee mentoring pilot. STM defined early careers as anyone with less than 10 years experience in the publishing market from any discipline. So from any discipline. The original cross-publisher pilot scheme was launched in the spring of 2015. And there were roughly 22 initial pairings, although the actual demand was much higher, but they felt that that was a workable number for the initial pilot. The pairings were based mainly on interest, but also on the competencies that, in particular, the mentees hoped to gain during the course of 2015. The initial pilot was 6 months long, and the majority of the mentors were actually quite high-profile senior figures within the industry. And again, I think that's probably something that we'll explore once we come to the question and answer session. And what they found was that the mentors as well as mentees really benefited from the scheme. So, you know, it was of benefit to everybody that participated. And as I understand it, the pilot is currently being reviewed with the aim of launching a full scheme later on this year. There are further details there for a contact. If you can't note that down at the moment, don't worry. I believe, as this is being recorded, I believe these slides will be available. And if anybody needs those contact details, just let me know afterwards, and I can obviously pass those on to you. The SSP Fellowship Programme, this was launched in 2016, encompassing multiple training and career development opportunities, networking events and community forums, individual advice and guidance through mentorship, and committee service. And they received something like 100 fellowship applications submitted for the 26 programme for just 12 places, which identified a demand for a much wider mentoring initiative. The initial focus was on early careers applicants, but they've now launched a scheme where individuals can apply for mentoring, and they aim to expand the reach of this to all levels and disciplines, so it won't just be focused on early careers, it'll actually be at all levels. And again, that's maybe something we can discuss. And it builds on the original travel grant programme, which funded students and early career professionals to attend this annual meeting, so it's built on and expanded that original initiative. You can find full details of that fellowship programme, including the 26 winners, I believe most of whom are actually attending this conference, on that link there. And again, you know, if people need that, please do see me afterwards. I can make sure that you get that. And most recently, I think they're launching a Shadow a Professional Day initiative, which is not quite the same as mentoring, but is a similar idea where you can spend a day with a professional in a particular discipline, shadowing them and learning more about their job and their responsibilities. And there are further contact details there. I'm not going to say a great deal more, I'm sure you're hugely relieved, but just to leave you with some food for thought, and there we go. And I apologise for anybody who was involved in the recent UK election. That guy really does look like Ed Miliband. The UK creative industries employment, these are UK government statistics. So creative industries is not just publishing, obviously. That's advertising, it's broadcasting, it's music, it's a whole range of things. But employment in that industry grew by 13.7% in the period 2011 to 2014, and by 5% in 2014 versus 2013. Now, those are the most recent figures I can get, but I think they're still pretty pertinent. Overall employment growth in the UK economy grew by 2.1% in that same 2014 versus 2013 period. So you can see that employment in the creative industries actually grew really quite significantly. And creative industries employment accounted for 5.8% of all UK employment in 2014. So again, that's not an insubstantial percentage. 58.8% of creative industries jobs were graduate equivalent or above, which I think is quite a significant statistic. And in publishing, that rose to 60.5%. Okay. I may not comment on that, but I think it is an interesting statistic. And 54.5% of all UK publishing jobs in 2014 were held by women. So just some food for thought to drop into the discussion. There's the source for that if you want to follow that up. And I'm now going to shut up and turn over to, I'm going to go left to right because it's the easiest way to do it. Pass you to Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, David.